Hey, Lee and Jim with LG Speed and Custom. Welcome to part 4 of putting airbags on a 59 Ford Galaxie. So in the last video, we left off with just finished putting the air management system together on the board, and Jim was working on the E-level sensors. Since then, Jim has pretty much done everything, because I've been working on another car, but I'll give you a little recap of what's been happening here. So in here, we've got our air management system all set up and in there, ready to go. Jim has wired it up. It was pretty much pre-wired on the board. All he had to do was hook up the grounds and run a power line all the way from the battery. We did have to change out the pressure switch. AccuAir has its own specific pressure switch that triggers the relay, but otherwise it was pretty straightforward. We've got our lines coming out of the manifold going into, what are these called? Bulkheads. These little bulkheads, and then on the other side of the floor, the lines go to each airbag. So to power the compressors off of the battery side of the solenoid, Jim has run a 1-gauge wire to a 80 amp circuit breaker, and then this wire continues all the way to the back along the frame rail and hooks up to the relay that powers the compressors. Here's the wire that he used. It's just a really heavy marine quality 1-gauge wire. He also ran the same wire for the ground, and it goes from the ground on the airboard system directly to the frame rail. So AccuAir E-level uses these little ride height sensors to determine what height the car is at and to adjust accordingly. So Jim has put those on. It's a little bit of trial and error setting these up because they have to go up and down with the suspension, but you have to set them in a way that this little arm up here maxes out the same time this maxes out and drops this way the same time this drops this way. So you kind of do a little bit of trial and error to figure out where to locate them so that the swing on this matches the swing on this. The other side here is just a mirror image. He's got little tabs welded on the 4-link bars for this end. And this end up here just screws to the frame, and then there's a wiring harness that comes from AccuAir that he has secured along the frame rail, and that goes to the computer. Up front is basically the same deal. Jim discovered that where the shock mount is, it actually works out for the right arc to allow this to go in its, or to travel in its position. Also, we determined that the lower shock mount, the stud that was in there at full lock would touch the inside of the tire. So Jim has replaced that with just a nut and bolt that moves the shock a little bit closer, and that has solved that issue. We never had that issue when we did this setup on Ryan's 57 Ranchero, but he also had reverse rims, whereas this is still running the original rims. So just something to keep in mind if you're doing this at home. Along the frame rail here, you can see where Jim has mounted the air line as well as the heavy power cable that goes to the back. You just use a little bit of fuel line just to make a little barrier where it would potentially rub through, and it's secured nicely with some P-clips. The air lines all run to the back of the car here and are nicely secured, and that's where they go through the floor, through the bulkheads to get to the manifold system. So the manifold is labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 go to the front, and 3 and 4 go to the rear. So the last thing that Jim has just finished hooking up, while I've been getting you guys all up to date, is the drain. In the very bottom of the tank, we have a 90-degree fitting with a 1/4-inch air line. And that air line runs all the way to the back bumper here, where we've got a little valve. And that way you can drain any moisture or oil or contaminants out of your tank without draining it into your trunk and getting it all over your nicely finished trunk interior. Isn't that true, Jim?
Yep.
So I think we're at the point now where we can put air in the tank, start testing for leaks, and maybe hook the battery back up and see if the compressors and everything are all going to work as they're supposed to. So Jim's going to unhook the coil wire here while I get the battery charger out and put the charger on it. We need to turn the key on for the compressors to kick in. So by disconnecting the coil wire, we can have the key on and the battery charger, keeping the battery filled up while everything does its thing, and that way we don't burn out the points. Obviously, once we know it works, we'll hook the coil wire back up. Okay, turn the key on and let's see what happens. These compressors should... Where is the key?
You got the key.
Key's up here. Well, we lit up back here. But yeah, the compressors didn't work. There we go. Okay, we're just going to let the compressors fill up until it cuts out, and then we'll see if our switches work. And from that point, we can put the wheels back on, maybe put it on the ground, and then the AccuAir system needs to calibrate. And that way, those little sensors that we were talking about on the suspension, that way the computer learns where they are and the motion of the travel and everything. Computer wizardry stuff. All right, the compressor's cut out. So we should have a full tank of air. Should we push a button and see what happens here? Things are happening. Cool. Let's put some air in it. And then we'll get a little squirt bottle and check for leaks. Just a little bit of dish soap mixed with some water. And you just want to squirt it on the fittings. And look for bubbles. You got bubbles, you got a leak. Those look okay. I think I can hear a hissing now. Found the leak. So it's not a big deal. We just got to put some more thread sealant on there and tighten it up a little bit. Found another leak there. So this is pretty normal. You're always going to have a little bit of leaks. You just got to go around afterwards and take care of them. So we have to calibrate the system now that the car is on the ground. Jim's gonna push a bunch of beep-boop buttons and the car will start to just go up and down on its own, doing its own thing. So don't put your fingers underneath it. It's flashing a code right now, which means that the rear, well, some of the ride height sensors aren't working properly. So we're thinking it's the rear ones need to be adjusted. So we're gonna put the car back in the air. Jim's gonna do that, and then we'll try again.
This one?
Yep. So it's the next morning. Yesterday we figured out the height control issue, hopefully, and fixed a few air leaks. So let's do our programming again as soon as Jim turns the key on. So. So this is the car doing its own thing like Christine. It's just going up and down, and then those ride height sensors tell the computer where everything's at. Watch your fingers, Jim. I think he's double checking to make sure that it was a front ride height sensor that we had an issue with. So I think he's watching that to make sure it's happy. We think it might be finished because it stopped flashing and it's sitting on number 2. Maybe grab the remote and push button 1 and see what happens. Button 1 should be really low but still drivable. Okay, push button 2. Push button 3. Button 2. Button 1. I think it works, man. With this AccuAir setup, it's got, like, you can control the front. That's all the front. Front left, front right, all the rear. Rear left, rear right. And then you've got these 3 buttons, 1, 2, 3. You push button 1, that's your, like, Friday night cruising the strip button. Really low, but still drivable. Button 2 would be just your regular cruising around, driving to get groceries and stuff. And then button 3 is if you're like coming up to a really aggressive parking lot entrance, or you're gonna bring the car in the shop, put it up on jack stands, need to get the floor jack under. And then if you push that one, that should dump it all the way down on the ground. Give it a push and see what happens. Cool. All right, we're gonna fire it up, take it outside, put the front seat back in, and then maybe drive it around, see how it works. Oh man, how are you gonna torque those rear ones? Here, let me help you out here. How's that work? Yeah. Beautiful. Let's go for a drive. So when you turn the key on, it automatically goes to ride height 2, which is pretty cool. We're cruising along at setting 2 right now, and it rides really nice. If we drop down to ride height 1, it rides a little bit like you'd expect a car to ride when it's this high off the ground. But I mean, I can live with it. Back to 2. Beautiful. Take me home.
Don't look at me, I'm not the chosen one. Don't break my balls, just trying to have some fun. My vision's blurry, don't think I'll last. Don't win your flag, we'll shove it up your wiles.
Well, it's the end of the day now. This car sat here all day. We aired it all the way up and left it for the entire day, and it was fine. It didn't drop down at all. Turned the key on at the end of the day, and the compressors didn't kick in, so I'm pretty sure that we've got our air leaks solved. Let's measure how far it went down. So it is aired all the way out right now. The back was at 19 inches before. Now it is at 14 inches. So that's a 5-inch drop in the back. I kind of thought it'd go a little more, to be honest, but I mean, 5 inches is still, that's a huge drop. The front was at 27.5 before, and now it is at 21.25. So what's that, like a 6.25 inch? Yes, we'll say 6 inches. Let's just double check the other side here. This side was at 28.5, and we are at 21.25 now. So yeah, it's like significant drop. Let's, I'm gonna turn the key on, and that's gonna bump it up to ride height 2. So this is where we'd be driving at comfortably. We were at 27.5, we're at 25.5 now, so that's 2 inches lower than stock. The back was at 19, and here we're at just under 17. So yeah, 2.5 inches below stock. That's okay. Let's, I'm gonna throw this remote over to the other side where I can reach it. So cruising down the road in setting 1, this is our like cruising main street stance. We went from 19 inches to 14.5 inches, so 4.5 inch drop. And up front, 27.5 to 22.25. We'll call it 22.5. So that's a 5-inch drop up front. That's pretty significant drop, I think. Let's air it all the way out again. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's it. I think that's it for this video. Before this car goes back to Steve's house up in Courtenay, he's asked us to put a vintage air conditioning kit in it. So are you guys interested in that at all? Let me know in the comments, and if you are, we'll do a video on it. If not, no sweat. Well, Jim and I will do it anyways. We're gonna do I think it's the Heritage Series under dash unit. So it's still like a month out before we get that kit. So the car will just kind of hang around for a month, I guess. Courtenay is where Steve lives. It's a little bit too far for him to come pick the car up, take it home, and then when the air conditioning parts show up, to bring it back. So it'll just hang out here. It'll be fine. Yeah, anyways, that's how you put air ride on a 59 Ford Galaxie 500. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a lot of fun making this video for you guys. If you want to support the channel, please check out lgspeedcustom.com, where we've got lots of great LG Speed and custom merch, such as this 47 Ford shirt that I'm wearing, artwork by Christian Head. And the music in this video is also done by Christian's band, the Wrought Iron Haulers. So go check out the Wrought Iron Haulers on Bandcamp if you want to support them. And yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the next video. And thanks to Steve for letting us do this. This was a really fun project. Really appreciate it. Stoked about it. So we'll see you guys later. Well, with the 59 Galaxie done, I guess it's time for our next project. Andrew Brittany's 56 Chevy pickup. Stay tuned for that one.